Back in the Victorian era, if the audience didn't like a play, they'd throw rotten fruit and vegetables at the actors. Miss one line and suddenly you're picking romaine out of your hair.
Think about the planning involved. Fancy dress? Check. Cufflinks? Check. Honey, don't forget to wrap up that decomposing cabbage. If Hamlet sucks, I need something to lob at the stage.
It's rare, but most of the time it's Belarus and Russia that get blocked, and it makes me a little sad. I care about the fans in this part of the world. Those fans deserve a good laugh as much as anyone else. Hell, I like Rocky IV. I rooted for Captain Ramius in The Hunt for Red October. Plus, I mean, there's no way Oswald acted alone, or even at all, according to that Oliver Stone documentary.
Not exactly eat, pray, love. More like aim, shoot, kill. Most flags say, remember our past. Mozambique says, remember our past, and we're still packing, so don't get any ideas.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.
Then let's call this first bit Pitch Perfect. Now, I've been to a lot of concerts in my day, more than my share of various live performances, and one thing I have never understood is why people feel the overwhelming urge to throw shit at the performers. Apparently, we've been doing it for centuries. Before Yelp, audiences left comments in 3D direct from the front row. Back in the Victorian era, if the audience didn't like a play, they'd throw rotten fruit and vegetables at the actors. Miss one line and suddenly you're picking romaine out of your hair.
Think about the planning involved. Fancy dress? Check. Cufflinks? Check. Honey, don't forget to wrap up that decomposing cabbage. If Hamlet sucks, I need something to lob at the stage. I'll hide the lettuce in my bra. Better wear the Chanel number 5 if we're smuggling compost.
The first recorded incident goes all the way back to AD 63, when Vespasianus Caesar Augustus was pelted with turnips during a riot. They probably had to invent the first percussion protocol on the spot. Root vegetables are basically nature's bowling balls. Just imagine the bruises. Forget getting stoned, this poor guy got rutabagged.
By Shakespeare's day, the cheap seats became known as the peanut gallery. You may have heard people ask if there were any comments from these no-hold-barred ruffians, because if you bombed, they pelted you with peanuts, apples, pears, basically any cheap eats became missiles of disapproval. Today, people leave one-star reviews on Reddit. Back then, it was death by trail mix.
By the late 1800s, Rotten Tomatoes became the gold standard for saying 2 thumbs way down. You guessed it, that's where the Rotten Tomatoes rating system gets its name, 2 splats way down. Today, it's just a percentage. Back then, it was an extortive dry cleaning bill. Fast forward to European rock concerts in the 70s and 80s, where glass beer bottles were flying toward the stage at all times. How long did it take someone at the concession stand to realize, we're accidentally operating an ammunition depot? Every beer vendor was accidentally running the medieval artillery flying projectile division.
Then there's the movie Whiplash. The kid thinks he's absolutely crushing it until J.K. Simmons hurls a cymbal that nearly decapitates him. The cymbal explodes against the wall. The kid looks up. Sorry, not my tempo. That's a stick drop moment. Every frustrated music teacher in America secretly wanted to say that at least once.
Sometimes, though, throwing things is actually supposed to be flattering. Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck practically needed snow shovels to clear away all the ladies' underwear off the stage. Being a roadie must have been one of the weirdest jobs in music. How did we do for the show? Fantastic. 9 bras, 5 pairs of bloomers, 3 garter belts, 2 ankle bracelets, a thong, and weirdly, 2 sets of dentures? I saw a video from a Megadeth show where Dave Mustaine reaches down between songs and picks up a bra that hit the stage. First thing he does is check the tag. He looks into the audience. Who threw this? A 32F? No way, dude. This is way too much woman for you. Meanwhile, some poor teenager spent the rest of the concert wondering how to explain to his mom where her bra went.
I think the award for trash throwing has to go to Woodstock 99. If you watch the documentary, it looks like a haze of plastic bottles and assorted trash just hovering over the crowd at all times. The shot when Wycliffe Jean is playing the national anthem, it's like he's using the ghost of Hendrix to conjure an airborne recycling event. 4 decades later, people are still talking about the dude that threw a dead bat on stage and Ozzy bit the head off. Smuggling a dead bat into a concert seems kind of odd, but I heard at later shows people threw a bevy of animals' heads on stage. Festival security check, water bottle, credit card, photo ID, sunscreen, and rotting cattle head. Oh wait, Oz is headlining. Free to go.
Elvis had a much classier system. During the 70s, he'd toss scarves into the crowd or let lucky fans pull one right off his neck after a kiss. Personally, I think Elvis missed a golden opportunity. He should have started throwing the underwear already on stage back into the audience. Can you imagine 50 women diving for one bra? It might be mine. I threw it at him 8 months ago, and I've been missing that since the Vegas residency.
We've really come a long way. We don't throw turnips anymore. Now we throw bras, phones, bracelets, and every once in a while, you can just send your girlfriend crowd surfing up to the stage, which is still a better review than Yelp. So let's hear your stories. I want to know, have you ever chucked a head of lettuce at a band? Launched your cat because a bad version of Smoke on the Water took a shit in a Tristan box and hurled it up at stage? Come at us in the comments.
Okay, want to talk about our feature interview?
Our feature interview this week is with Craig Breitsprecher, bass player and backing vocalist for the Connecticut-based doom death band Fires in the Distance. We get into the background of the band's moniker, the making of their spectacular new album, Circadian Promise, as well as how they happened upon new vocalist Brendan Hayter, odd running song titles, and what it means to go too far with the band's rider demands. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, let's play a song. This is To You, Author of My Fade.
Let's talk about Hope for the Day, a wonderful nonprofit dedicated to the prevention of suicide through mental health education. Suicide has no prejudice, and over 700,000 suicides are reported each year, with many more going unreported. In the U.S. alone, over 130 individuals commit suicide on a daily basis. Through outreach, education, and action, we can equip people with the right tools to be proactive in their communities.
Stop believing your Instagram feeds, my friends. Life is not a sunny stroll through the streets of Tuscany with your gorgeous trophy wife sipping her aquapanna. Sorry, it just ain't. Sometimes life is scrubbing wine stains off the floor or picking coffee grounds out of your teeth. Everybody struggles sometimes, and everyone has problems.
Sometimes you even find wet socks on your front porch. You don't know. So if you or anyone you know has ever felt like they're in a dark place where hope is lost, please check out Hope for the Day's extensive resources in the show notes below. And always remember, it's okay to be not okay.
And speaking of stains, I think it's time. Hit it!
And now it's time for Obnoxious Trivia!
So only one page of notes, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The readers connect to this side.
I don't know, it looks a little wordy to me. Okay.
All right, number one. In 1933, Eleanor Jarman was sentenced to 199 years in prison. After serving only 7 years, she escaped by climbing a prison fence in 1940 and disappeared. For the next 35 years, how did she reportedly stay in contact with her family while living under an assumed identity? A. She placed letters written with invisible ink hidden inside library books. B. She communicated through coded messages placed in newspaper personal ads. C. By using ham radio and playing songs that had hidden meanings. D. By mailing postcards from every state except the one where she was hiding.
That last one sounds like an awful lot of work. I'm going to say A, the library books.
No, she actually communicated through coded message placed in newspaper personal ads.
Really?
Yep. She
Like how? Like what did she do?
I don't know if I have any specific examples, but she might, just use like kind of coded like, you know, just to let them know she was okay, you know. So Eleanor Jarman's story, they called her the Blonde Tigress, became one of America's stranger fugitive mysteries. After she escaped custody, she used newspaper advertisements as secret communication channel with relatives. Authorities never successfully captured her, and she was believed by some researchers to have died in Denver in 1980 under another name. Imagine being a wanted fugitive and your family communication plan is basically check the classified dear. The third ad in her gardening supplies is actually grandma saying she's fine.
It's bizarre.
She did meet up with her sons a couple times too.
There's a sale at Penny's. Okay. Number 2.
In 2025, mycologists In 2025, mycologists formally described the new species of zombie fungus called Gibberella attenborough. Why did this fungus earn comparisons to a science fiction horror? A. It infects cave-dwelling spiders and manipulates their behavior before growing from their bodies to spread its spores. B. It causes spiders to grow extra limbs made of fungal material that help them hunt as a hybrid species. C. It makes spiders extremely hostile, even attacking humans that it comes near. D. It transforms spiders into vampire-like creatures that bite and suck blood.
I think it's A. It infects them and they spread the spores.
You are correct. It's just like
Last of Us.
The Last of Us. Instead of, remember that we found some that were ants? This infects cave-dwelling spiders. It's a bit nasty. And they named it after David Attenborough because of his decades of work bringing strange and overlooked parts to nature.
Wild concept. It's a fungus that learned to manipulate spider behavior.
Yeah,
Wow.
it takes them over and it actually makes them walk out of hiding so that then
It really
it
is like The Last of
eats
Us.
them,
Yeah.
and then eventually it spreads spores to other spiders. But
That's
don't worry,
great.
thus far it can't yet infect people.
Not yet. Not yet. Okay, I actually got one. Okay.
3. In 1927, physicist Thomas Parnell began an experiment that is still running today. Its goal was to demonstrate that a material most people think of as solid actually behaves like an extremely slow-flowing liquid. What was the substance? A. A sea sponge. B. Amber. C. Pitch. Or D. Obsidian.
1927.
It's still going on today.
A solid is actually a slow-flowing liquid. I don't know what obsidian is, so I'm gonna say a B amber.
It's pitch.
What's pitch? Tar?
Pitch is kind of like a super, super thick tar.
Okay.
It's known as the pitch drop experiment, and it's been running continuously since 1927 at the University of Queensland. Only a handful of drops have fallen in nearly 100 years, and no one has ever actually been there to witness a drop. They actually have it up on camera now if you'd like to be bored to tears.
Wow, that sounds
The
fascinating.
experiment earned a Nobel Peace Prize and remains one of the longest laboratory experiments in the world. Imagine spending your entire
Waiting for a drip.
scientific career waiting for a drip, and the experiment is literally almost
I'm
flowing.
sealing in my office if they want some excitement. All right, number 4.
The famous Kajajuro group of monuments in India are renowned for their intricate carvings. Approximately what percentage of the sculptures depict erotic scenes that would make Pornhub blush? A, about 2%, B, about 10%, C, about 60%, or D, nearly 90%.
I'm going with 90%.
It's 10.
Oh, okay.
But it is mostly what people always
Cave Hub.
Cave Hub. You gotta check some of them out. It's like
Okay.
some racy scenes.
Right.
But it's like it's kind of it's a lot of the scenes are just daily life, but they also wanted to include scenes concerning fertility, worshippers, kind of everything that would make people happy. But it's the medieval version of clickbait. One tiny part gets all the attention while 90% gets completely ignored. Everybody always talks about the racy.
This carving is called Accidental Threesome. All right. This has been Obnoxious Trivia. That spider shit is crazy.
Yeah. Yes, me.
Really scary zombie spiders. All right, it's time for our Snaggletooth, and this is called
Run it up the pole.
How Does a State or Country Decide on Their Official Flag Design? Most of them seem pretty benign, like here's a tree, here's a bird, here's some stars. Nice, respectable stuff showing off state-sponsored beauty.
Virginia thought about their flag and said, nah, make ours look like an ass-kicking Spartan goddess. The flag features Virtuous, the Roman goddess of bravery and courage, standing triumphantly over a defeated tyrant. And when I say defeated, I mean this guy never really knew what hit him. She even planted a foot on his chest to add insult to the final injury. I'm guessing they really wanted us to know the victor was female as someone decided, have one of her tits pop out.
Then there's the motto, Sic Semper Tyrannis, thus always two tyrants. Translation, no tyrants up in this bitch. State-sanctioned toplessness and a corpse. It all made sense to somebody. You know, Louisiana looked at other state flags and thought, you know what would really represent us? A bird cutting itself like a gothic weirdo. The Louisiana flag features a mother pelican feeding her young. Sounds wholesome, right? Just a symbol of family, nurturing, and sacrifice. Except look closer. The pelican is vulning. That means she's using her beak to tear open her own breast and feed the chicks her blood.
They didn't go with the Mississippi River, the French Quarter, Mardi Gras, or Zydeco players. Someone drew a bizarre vampire bird, and the heads of state said, that's the one. The image comes from a Catholic legend about the pelican sacrificing herself for her young, which was later connected to the symbolism of the Eucharist. Basically, a reminder of sacrifice and giving everything for your children. A little weird when you remember the mascot is a bird saying, don't worry, kids, mom's brought dinner. Most state flags say, look at our history, our nature, our pride. Louisiana says, welcome to our state. Please enjoy the culture, the Creole food, maybe a little voodoo, and ignore the possibility that our state bird is raising a tiny flock of blood-hungry pelicans.
A lot of national flags feature historic weapons, swords, spears, shields, things that make you think, ah, yes, the gallant, chivalrous warriors of the past. Mozambique tossed that tradition aside and said, Alex, we'll take assault rifles for 500. It depicts not a symbolic sword or tribal ancient spear, but an actual AK-47. And because apparently an assault rifle wasn't sending enough of a message, it has a bayonet attached.
Not exactly eat, pray, love. More like aim, shoot, kill. Most flags say, remember our past. Mozambique says, remember our past, and we're still packing, so don't get any ideas. Success requires hard work, knowledge, and occasionally an AK-47.
Most flags feature things like stars, stripes, maybe an olive tree. Bhutan looked at that and said, nah, put a giant mythological fire-breathing creature on ours. The central creature is Druk, the legendary thunder dragon from Bhutanese mythology. And this isn't some cute Puff the Magic dragon frolicking in the autumn mist. This dragon looks like he just flew out of an epic fantasy battle. Fierce, powerful, and ready to go Draconis on your ass.
He's clutching sparkling jewels in all of his claws. Bhutan's dragon is saying, I protect this kingdom, and I can also fiercely accessorize. Hey, it's a material world, even for scaly fire breathers.
Yes, come to Snaggletooth so you can find out about the world's stupidest flag. That's great. We're really reaching for the stars here. Appalling. Let's play anything to help us forget that. This is called Of Radiance and Levitation. Okay, so about Coffee AM, and I believe you have some very things, don't you?
You do, and they're brandy new bags.
Okay, the little bricky bags, yeah.
Bags. Coffee AM, if you haven't heard us talk about them, is this wonderful company right here in the United States out of Georgia. They roast coffee to order. They even put your name on the bag. This one says Snaggletooth Podcast. Look at that.
Interesting.
They have like about 8, 9 pages of flavors. They also have unflavored coffees if that's more your thing, including stuff like Kona coffees. They've got
This one says your Snaggletooth was appalling. Interesting.
single origin. We really like the different flavors. We're just getting done a baklava, which I think we just finished. Or
I just finished it today. Yeah.
So tomorrow we can either start on a calypso cream coffee,
Or hot fudge brownie coffee or Snaggletooth is appalling.
which is a very odd thing to put on a bag of coffee.
Yeah.
But they come in these great little bags with the little, you can sniff
Mhm.
coffee through it, but it
Smells
stays
fantastic.
safe in these bags. You can get these drip grind, French press, whole bean if you prefer to.
Decaf if you're a weirdo.
If you prefer to grind your own beans, I'd rather save the time on a work morning rather than grind beans.
We used to do that.
Yeah.
Remember we had a little
Yeah.
grinder. Yeah.
So-
It's probably still up there. Yeah.
In case I ever forget and we accidentally order it beaned.
Yeah.
They also are a points program. So after a while, the more you buy, you can redeem for dollars off a future order. We've never had better coffee than this, and you too can have the best coffee in the world.
They're lovely, lovely people. Really, they are. Okay.
FedEx to your door.
It's time for Bombastic Plastic.
Bombastic.
And this week we're going to talk about what?
Samael with Blood Ritual. Painful experiences with necessary evil institutions used to be limited to places like the NBA and the Apple Store and EasyPass. But a curious phenomenon has ensued, causing us to add one more. Due to the fact that Quest and seemingly other lab services have closed their doors, LabCorp, with zero competition whatsoever, has joined the ranks of the above as a truly horrifying service.
Trying to get a simple blood test or drug screen is no longer easy. Try to do it on a walk-in basis, and you'll find yourself waiting for hours in a crowded cubby, standing room only, mothers trying to quiet their bored little bastards whining. I actually made an appointment online a few weeks ago, and when I got there, the blank-eyed technician handed all of us a business card. Due to a problem with our equipment, we are directing you to our Perry Hall location. It is only 1 mile away, and they do take walk-ins. And that really pissed me off, because after my above-mentioned walk-in fun, I had to argue with her. I'm not a walk-in. I made an appointment. So I didn't know what to expect. Turns out counting my knuckle hairs was a little more productive than arguing with this listless employee. When I got to the secondary location, well, the good news is it wasn't crowded, but the bad news is I couldn't find an employee to save my life. Front desk, empty. No back in 5 minutes sign, just an empty room. This used to be easier, didn't it? To make a long story short, I finally got my blood test done, and then they sent me 94 bills for my balance of $4 that I owe them.
One of these days, I'm going to take a deep dive through Samael's prolific 80s output of demos and splits. Suffice to say, this is a band that got it right from the very beginning. Spawned from that mysterious land that brought us Watches, Neutrality, Interesting Cheese, Coroner, and Tom Warrior. By the time their second full-length dropped, they were all but a lethal force. A seminal touchstone for the hard-to-imagine-as-it-is burgeoning indie known as Century Media, along with early Tiamat, Asphyx, and I want to say Iced Earth? Blood Ritual is the frayed edge of doom meeting black metal with well-honed riffing and just the right goth-flecked overtones. Already boasting a set of 5 to 6 demos and a full-length, Zai and Zorf are seasoned, hungry, and absolutely ready for prime time. Let's play a clip beyond the nothingness.
Producer Valdemar Sorikta dials up remarkably warm mix, incorporating Herculean Sabbath riffing, crisp snare, punchy bass drum, and the occasional icy piano vamp. The The juxtaposition of the keys and Vorf's snarl in total consecration is a particular highlight. Mosmasheim's bass playing is astonishingly audible, warm and bubbly, particularly in the outro of Macabre Operetta. Celtic Frost influence pretty much in your face in that one. Vorf already showing a selective, sober taste in riffing. Witchy, apocalyptic lyrics, exceptionally well written, particularly with the gleam of the torches. With genuinely creepy lines like, "Look deep in my eyes, you little bitch," and "I wish to hear her yell of disgust, fear, and pain." Better than prime Fate lyrics, if you ask me. At any rate, I'm just confirming what you probably already surmised. Beyond essential stuff, and the band would continue to improve with subsequent releases like Ceremony of Opposites, Passage, eventually working themselves into a techno-metal frenzy with Reign of Light. So lots to explore from these Swiss weirdos. And they really don't have an off album. This one's as good of a jump-off point as any, so get on it. And in the meantime, here's hoping We Hate Your Blood and Piss Incorporated doesn't screw up the results of your drug screen. Let's play a clip. This is With the Gleam of the Torches. Okay, what interesting interview?
This was our great chat with Craig. Was really interested to get into the backstory.
He's a finance guy.
Really love this album. If you haven't gotten into Fires in the Distance, this could be your invitation right here. What a great album. What a great band. We can't wait to see them once they come to Baltimore very soon.
Yep, we're excited. All right, take it away.
So I love the name of the band too. It's so searchable, it's so Googleable, and it really kind of fits this feeling of foreboding, but also beauty. Fire up there is okay. It's just the danger of it getting closer. Do you know the origin? I was totally expecting it to be like some James Joyce novel I'd never heard of.
Well, it's certainly not named after a novel. I think the key to the band name is it's cold music, right? Fire's in the distance. You don't get the warm, loving embrace. It's out of reach, visible but out of reach. So people can take their own meaning. That's not something that we're trying to put onto our listeners, but that's what it means for us.
Okay.
Kind of reminded me of that scene. I don't know if you watched the Dutton Yellowstone series. The Duttons had a spinoff, and at one point they notice fires in the distance, and the next minute they're like evacuating their house and they're all like running out, and it's like, I thought it could be that too, kind of like impending doom somewhere. Maybe just out there. I like
and it's
it.
It's abbreviatable. Is that a word? FITD, So it's cool.
Good for email sign-offs.
Exactly, right.
I talked about in my review how I totally messed up with my daughter. New parent. If she woke up in the middle of the night, I would read stories to her if she didn't go right back to sleep. And it wasn't until I got to the doctor that they were like, no, you have to make night and day very different, or she's never going to know the difference. So I was like, oh, so you addressed her needs, put them back to bed. So that's what I was writing about. Because as soon as I read that Circadian Promise, that's immediately what jumped to mind. Natural rhythms, cycles, balance, darkness, light. What was the spark behind the title, and what does that promise represent to you personally?
I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the title, but I think the promise is the inevitability of life, and we're essentially all on borrowed time in a long enough time scale itself, and the acceptance and the peace that comes with that.
And personally, speaking of rhythms, are you a daytime early bird or are you a night owl? And when do your most productive thoughts happen?
As long as it's consistent, I can adapt. I think I'm more wired to be an early person. I like to start work before other people do and hopefully end before other people do. But when it comes time to make that adaptation and take music on the road, I can usually adapt to, staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning and waking up between 10 and 12, depending on how long you have to drive the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work for a doctor, and our first patient is for 7:45 in the morning. So I commented to this guy once. He was new. I said, "Oh, you're brave. You get me before coffee." And the next time he came in, he must have been scared about that. He's like, "Did you have your coffee?"
Funny you should mention that. Igor is a nurse in a dialysis unit, and the dude's a machine. He's a great composer, and I swear some nights he'll just stay up all night working on music.
Oh, wow.
But like he has to be at work, I think at 5:45 in the morning. So the dude's a machine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. No.
I'm barely there most of the time.
I wanted to talk about the artwork with you because I really loved it. It made me think of like the two versions of self, kind of like you have the white figure and then the darker
Almost
figure.
like a bride and then someone in mourning.
Right.
Like a moment of great joy and a moment of great sorrow.
Does the artwork represent some kind of emotional journey, or like how did you pick the artwork and what does it represent to you guys? Okay, so we had down like 2 bottles of Jägermeister the previous night, and then in my brilliance, I found a bottle of NyQuil to keep the buzz going, right? So passed out pretty hard, obviously.
God, did you even make it to your bed?
I did, yeah, but then I remember waking up the next morning, I was thinking it was really hot in the room, right? Turns out I had dozed off with a lit cigarette in my hand and the sheets were on fire.
God, what happened?
Well, it turns out that, oh, hi.
We know you're here to enjoy our interview with Craig from Fires in the Distance. But just a quick aside, we do interviews like this every week on Snaggletooth's Decay.
Like our interview with the entire suffocation-style death metal band Theatas, where we cover everything from replacing bass players to creative uses of drywall.
Or our exquisite chat with John Paradiso of the New Jersey-based death metal band Grim Legion, with stories that go all the way back into the 1980s. So don't forget to subscribe because, hey, the weirdness never stops around here. And now, back to Fires in the Distance.
Well, we've been working with our artist, Kalen Stockermans, for some time. And one thing we believe in when we're working with other professionals, whether it's a sound engineer, a lighting person, an artist, we want to give them some liberty in their own interpretation of the music. So, oftentimes we will give them a template or an idea and we kind of let them run with it. It's always a little bit different than what we imagined, but to be honest, there really wasn't a kind of like a preconceived notion we wanted from the artwork or a choice for it. We talked about a couple broad ideas with our artist, and every record he's come back with something that we've loved. So minor guidance, but very good artistic interpretation from him.
Yeah, I love it, man.
I like the old school vibe of it too. Kind of seems like it might be like a painting in a museum next to the Mona Lisa, that you're
Right.
to stare at and get different interpretations from.
Yeah, his style definitely fits the band. I think he does a lot of hand drawings first, and obviously these days, it's going to be filled in and optimized with the computer. But as a band, I think that we are organic. I think we are, real, right? We're not trying to play at 300 BPM. We are trying to have real, vulnerable music, and I think the album art reflects that.
That's great. So for a while, it seemed like you were putting out a long, full album once every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was reading that Jaeger's already started on the next album. So do you think fans might get another album sooner, or does it usually take that 3 years of process?
It's really hard to say. And what I've learned over the time working with Igor, because we've been playing music together since, we were 18. So, we're going on 21 years at this point. You can't rush the process, and you don't want to put pressure on your composer. I've noticed over time, he'll write in waves. He might complain that he has writer's block and just, hey man, be nice to yourself. Like, pet your dog, go for a walk, you'll be okay. And then a couple weeks later, he'll have like 2 or 3 songs that are 90% complete. So
wow.
It's definitely very encouraging to see the progress. We're really excited with where we are, and we should have some things as a band to work on this winter to get ready. but I would not go so far as to make a promissory statement that we're going to have an earlier release when, we're just building the framework now. And there's a lot of dressing that goes into making an album.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Back in my younger days, bringing in a new vocalist, we used to joke it was like a band getting a heart transplant, basically. Not as much these days, and not as much in this genre. But talk about, you know, bringing in Brendan and how he may have influenced the band's chemistry, especially on this album.
Yeah, I mean, changing vocalists was not something that was really planned or something that we had a contingency for, but we found ourselves in need of a vocalist, and we took some time to really think and deliberate about who we knew, who we wanted to work with, who kind of fit the vibe, who was going to be good to work with. And Brendan was a recommendation that we all kind of jived with because we had seen him perform and we thought he was fantastic. And he also had worked with our producer, Dave Kaminsky. So once we all kind of just started to vibe together, it just really seemed natural. He's such a diverse vocalist, and it's kind of like when you walk into a Chinese restaurant and there's 100 things on the menu. What do you do? As opposed to our prior vocalist who had, kind of like a set style, it really opens the door and allowed for some creative liberties and also a lot more choice for a lot of parts. So it was a really cool dynamic to figure out and build. And we're excited for the future. It's been really, really awesome working with him. And he just feels like he's the dude at this point now that we've been working together for a year and a half.
Yeah, and the first time I was like, oh, there's clean vocals. And I love a blendy blend, especially the way you guys do it. It's just in the right amounts, and it gives that extra hook, to kind of sit in your brain, and like Nile and Earn and they're all doing, and you guys do it really, really well. Was there ever a moment when you were like, should we do this, or is this the direction we want to go in?
Well, I think we kind of knew from the start. So when Brendan auditioned for the band, he did. Oh God, I'm sorry, I'm having a brain block. The song that he did didn't have clean vocals on it. But he just kind of came up with some parts that were like almost Devin Townsend, kind of like in the background, like clean vocals. And it just became very clear that he's the type of person where he's not going to just take orders and do the part. He's going to make it his own. And we really like that, especially with Igor being the core composer. We all have a responsibility as like his musicians to kind of put our own thing into it. So it sounds like a collective unit and not just, we're playing music from a manuscript. And I think we knew early on that this was a talent of Brendan's. And while we weren't looking for a vocalist who could do cleans, it was definitely an asset that we thought would fit well with the music and that most people would like over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen nothing but positive feedback.
Right.
The same feeling I got. It seems to be the collective consensus on that one.
Yeah.
But it's really, really well done.
We're big fans of Prosthetic Records. How's it? You've been with them for a while. How's it been in terms of support? How are they to work with?
Well, there's kind of two different phases to Prosthetic. As you may have heard, they had sold to Monarch Records it was last year in 2025. So it's a much different culture. It's a much bigger company. They have departments. They have a lot of different people who are kind of banding together, as opposed to, former Prosthetic had 4 people, but both have their strengths, both have their limitations. But overall, we've had a good relationship with our record label. And if it wasn't for Steve Joe finding us, in the middle of the pandemic, we might not be having this conversation. So I don't really think we exist without Prosthetic Records.
Yeah.
Being a label has changed very much since back in the 80s. Back then, labels controlled so much of the recording, promotion, distribution, sending your guitarist out for lessons if they felt like he needed it in the middle of the recording. Actually happened.
Yeah.
Today, with streaming and social media, bands have such a way to reach fans directly. From your perspective, what role should a great label do for a band? What is their primary focus should be?
I mean, I think they have to be relationship managers in a lot of ways, right? They are curating the music, they're creating a deliverable, they're sending it out to the people who are buying it. They probably know a bunch of people in the industry. They know a lot of bands. They know who's releasing records at what time. I think the best record labels are in touch with their humanity, and they are trying to help bands grow just by virtue of who do I know that can help you with this situation that you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
We get bombarded with promos because every reviewing publication does, right? And when I have time, which is not often, I do like to take a look and see, okay, this label, is there a single, is there a teaser single that's out? Can I get to the teaser single? Is it on Spotify? Is it on a playlist on Spotify that seems like a hot playlist? You know what I mean? Like, these are the things I look at, and a lot of labels, it's, so, but I kind of, I like looking at that because to me, I feel like that's kind of what they have to do. You know what I mean? Because you guys don't have time to do all that stuff. And how would we know how to get on a Spotify playlist? I think you have to like be friends with God, for that, so.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because that is a hotly contested item amongst musicians. And if you have the time, the capacity, and the expertise to make your own records and do everything from scratch, you could do that. But we all have jobs. Like we can't,
Right.
we just don't physically have time for it. And I don't know if we would be the most qualified to do that. So
Yeah.
as much as it might make sense for other people to be independent, I don't see that for us. We did just finish our contract with Prosthetics, so we're going to kind of enjoy and explore free agency and see who else might be interested. But overall, it's been a good working relationship, and I think all the pieces that we've really needed to have filled in, they stepped up and completed for us.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So I would love to know if we could have this band and transport you back in time to the 80s and the era of you have to have videos on MTV and there was no social media. Do you think the band would have found a place in that landscape, or do you feel your music is more a product of today's metal scene?
That's a really good and difficult question to answer. So I think a lot of our influences, like Scandinavian melodic death metal bands, naturally listened to a lot of music in the 80s. And you can hear that, if you listen to old In Flames, At the Gates, Dark Tranquility, Soil Work, you can tell that they loved 80s bands
Yeah.
like Iron Maiden, Slayer, Pantera.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could have existed back then because I don't think the progression that metal took was there at that time. So I don't think so. No, I'm not sure it would have been the right time or the right place.
Yeah, it was a really weird time. What were you saying? You were at the gym and you all of a sudden John was singing.
Oh God. I was just gonna date myself, but yeah, I was at the gym. It was like junior year of college, and all of a sudden on FM radio came the new Anthrax song, and I was like, that's John Bush singing for Anthrax. What the hell happened? Right? Like we got no warning. There was no way to know. And so yeah, it was that wouldn't happen nowadays. You'd know way ahead of time.
You would.
Yeah.
But one thought that came into my brain was, when we first had our debut record, Echoes from Deep November, ready to go, we had it set to release in May of 2020. And that's when we got picked up by Prosthetic. And, when we were recording the record, this was, before the pandemic, I'm like, man, this is like really dark and kind of sad music. Like, I hope people identify with it.
Right.
And in a lot of the ways, releasing it when the world was kind of shut down, it was kind of perfect. Like it really matched where the world was at that point. So, you know, I think every music has its time and place, and we're certainly not the biggest band, or I would even say a big band, but um, it's one thing to be good. Sometimes it's better to be lucky. And I think that our first release came out at the right time in the right place, for sure.
That is interesting because we 9 out of 10 we hear the total opposite. We hear we made this incredible record and pandemic hit and it absolutely went nowhere because we couldn't tour on it and blah blah blah. We hear that's usually what we hear, you know. So good
Well,
for you.
both things can be true at the same time. I mean, it definitely made things harder because, you know, you couldn't just pack up and go play a show and make money. Oftentimes you're trying to make promotional material or film videos and doing things that have an output of cash flow.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're trying to stay relevant until everything opened up. And, you know, Steve Joe from Prosthetic put it in a really good way. He's like, yeah, it sucks that bands can't tour, but guess what? Like, you're all on the same level right now. This all comes back to the music. And that's actually a really big opportunity that if you can embrace it and run with it, sky's the limit.
Yeah. Yeah, we went out at one point during the pandemic just to see a cover band. And it was like I tried to hand the lady like $20 at the bar for beers, and she looked at me like I was Satan, you know.
Do the app.
And
You
we
can't stand
I
up.
couldn't get the app to work, and we had to sit at tables. And I was like, I am not going to go see Cannibal Corpse sitting at a fucking table. This is ridiculous. This has got to get better, you know. But it
Yeah.
was really scary at the time, you know. So
Yeah. And it was really tough for us as a band because it's like we're gaining traction. People like us. Like we want to go out on the road and kick ass, but we can't.
right.
So it's been we have not taken it for granted that we're able to play live and
Yeah.
go out, meet some fans, play some shows, and you know
Yeah.
that's what playing music is about.
Yeah.
Jordan's drumming really stood out to me on this record. He does a little bit of prog with his crazy fills. He does a little bit of blast beats. He does just about everything. I was reading that you kind of tracked the percussion at the same time. What was the reason behind that? Because I think it really was impactful if that's the way it went as far as giving a real strong percussiveness to this album.
Yeah. So just to clarify, the bass and the drums were tracked at the same time. I caught what you meant there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So the thought behind that is our producer wanted to capture just the human element of musicians playing in a room together. And when you track separately, it's just you and the playback recording. But um, Jordan is an amazing drummer, and he is equally as amazing of a bandmate. He watches out for cues from other people. You know, he's listening to everybody else. Like he knows when to dial it up and to dial it back. And as a bass player, that's really an emphasis for me with metal. A lot of bass playing is just very just straight all the way through, but I want parts where it's loud, parts where it's quiet, parts where I'm accenting the drums, parts where I'm accenting the guitars. And being in a room together and recording your parts in a live setting, you feed off each other. You know, if my hands are getting tired and I'm seeing this dude blast, I'm like, well, I can't let up. Like, so it's the mutual respect, but also just that push of like, we're going to help each other get the best parts out of it. And it was tough. You know, it's like this was 4 12-hour days where it's like you show up at the studio, it's 10 a.m. and in the blink of an eye, it's 10 p.m. and you got to get home and do it again tomorrow.
Oh,
Wow. Yeah.
did you have any good power snacks to help you through that, or did you just?
Yeah, but they didn't seem powerful at the time. They still weren't quite enough to catch your energy back. We had some banging pad thai and, you know, lots of coffee. But, you know, it was tough, obviously, but it should be tough. You know, it's like you don't want to go into a recording session and just not playing with energy. So that's part of the fun. You got to embrace it.
Yeah, it really stood out to me. And when I read that, I'm like, that makes sense. That's why it goes so well together. That's why the bass and drums sound great.
There are some bands that when you really analyze their sound, you say, okay, so the drummer and the bass player are super They're super tight and they're they're laying it down. So the singer can go off and the guitar player can do whatever the heck he wants because you got that solid bass. You know what I mean? But you don't see it the other way. You don't have like with the singer and the guitar player are solid and the drummer's all over the place and the bass player's doing this. Like you really don't see that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think, my theory on why you see that, especially in American bands, is I do think we're a little bit more exposed to jazz music where instead of the drummer being the rhythmic focal point, it's usually the bass player. And I would not call myself a jazz bassist, but just having dabbled into the history and learning the theory of it and like what the dynamic places between the instruments, it does influence certain parts. For example, I think in Lightless Days of a Songless Bird, kind of that middle section where Jordan is just kind of going bananas, my job at that point is really just to hold it together,
Right.
keep the click. So that way, when he comes back into the groove, he knows where the groove is. So little intricacies like that are subtle in the rhythm section, but they're purposeful. And there was a lot of thought about that before we went into the studio.
What are your feelings on a good bass solo? Because God knows I love them.
It's got to be the right time and the right place. It's for some people it's a snooze fest, but I think with reference to Fires, the first track has like a little bass interlude. I don't know if I'd call it a solo, but it's just the spot for it. Everything else has kind of died down, and we're building up the dynamics, and that's a good spot for it. But we're not trying to force it.
Whenever this subject comes up, I always think of Owner of a Lonely Heart has a bass solo in it, and it was like a top 10 hit. And I just always wonder if there was like argument, should we leave the bass solo in? They got away with it. You know what I mean? Like
It's funny, we did this band Sky Valley Mistress. It's just this two-piece. It's crazy. The guy, he plays bass and hits the kick drum. She plays the snare and sings. It's like, okay. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. Right. But they have the song. And I was listening to it. I'm like, that is the bass solo from Sabotage. And when I asked them about it, they were like, no. I was like, okay.
They didn't hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I copy a bass solo, like, please tell me. Yeah. Maybe that's a reason to avoid bass solos in and of itself.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, give me Dax Riggs the solo stuff any day of the week. Love it. Lightless Days of a Songless Bird may be one of the saddest titles I've ever heard. I was almost going to tease in my review and be like, and he lost his sweater and somebody stole his lunch.
It's like a country song, like, yeah. Yeah.
Beak fell off. But the title itself almost seems like a contradiction, but it's like kind of like, and then I was reading about how, with Jaeger's MS diagnosis, you kind of learn a new normal and kind of learn to accept that. Is that kind of the general themes behind that? Even though he didn't know it at the time the song was written, I'm sure it's taken on a whole different meaning.
Well, again, for emphasis with our music, we want loose interpretation. What it means for us might mean something completely different for the audience, and that's what we want. Like, we don't want to put our vision onto other people. Speaking for myself, I think what that song represents is some ways just the volatility of life, right? But also the importance of perseverance and also the acceptance of when you're hit with those hard times. It's often you're on your own. Nobody's going to help you. You're the only one responsible for picking yourself up. And I think that, I don't want to speak for Igor, but how I've seen him deal with his MS diagnosis, he's not looking for pity. He's not using that as an excuse. I commend him for managing it as well as it is. And, if we're playing shows and I see that he's tired and, he probably just needs a break, it's like, dude, I got your stuff. Like, you just relax, like, do your thing. So,
Yeah.
Long-winded answer to your question, but that's my take on that track.
Yeah, I kind of saw it that way too. Like you were saying, pandemic, I went from 2 jobs to no jobs. And I thought, the hell am I going to do now? I actually ended up making more money than I ever thought possible because I didn't know what was coming. But It's crazy. You just gotta like, it's like, okay, this is the new normal now. Now I don't work. Okay.
Yeah, that's why on
Yeah.
our show we every show we talk about there's an important suicide prevention charity that we support called Hope for the Day. And it's, our spin on that is always, it might seem really bad, but 2 weeks from now, everything could turn around. And a month from now, it might not seem that bad at all. And that's just the way life is. So, and my heart goes out to these young people that live and die on social media and they think it's like, you know, a stroll down the Italian Riviera in a bikini. That's life. It's not, it's a very false, a lot of that stuff is just bullshit. So
Yeah, and there's something to be said about turning off the
definitely.
distractions and
Yeah.
how, we're just not really built for this as humans, right? We're supposed to kind of have times of low stimulus and, you know, we're I can't think of the last time I was like actually bored besides like being in the hospital or something. It's like we have so much stimulus and
Sure. Yeah.
that has an effect on people. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to stay in my lane. But yeah, I could definitely see where folks who are maybe less developed and more impressionable will go on Instagram and think that's like everyday life. And
It's
dude,
just
it's
not.
not.
It's just not. No, it's not.
Just a
Being an
day where
influencer seems like the worst possible job. So I'll just leave it at that.
We're kind of sadistic in that whenever there's a show about the disgrace of an influencer on Netflix, we go right for it because we love when the house of cards falls apart. I don't know, probably because we also kind of live and die online for our show. So when we find out somebody was trying to shortcut it and it didn't work, we're like, ha ha.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of hours, not a lot of payoff at first, and there's definitely a dark underbelly to that society. But to each their own.
Yeah.
So, were you self-taught from the beginning, or did you have formal lessons, are you a fret or no fret guy?
Um, so starting from the top, I would say that I was privileged enough to have a really good music education. Growing up in Connecticut, we have good school systems, right? We have school bands. I started playing trumpet when I was in elementary school. I switched to bass guitar when I was 14. So I've always I've had years of formal lessons, but I've always just been around really good players where it's kind of been getting lessons my whole life, just like hanging out with friends and like show me that. I'm mostly a fretted bassist. I did pick up fretless this year, and that's just been kind of a new thing for me to practice and just kind of let me preface it. Being in I guess a semi-professional band at this point, there's a lot of rehearsing. There's a lot of monotony in your routine. And I have found it really important to practice for me too sometimes. And learning fretless bass, like I don't ever see myself doing this for 5 years, but this is for me and it's a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah. Do you have any are you strictly four string or do you have any that have, more than four?
No, I'm strictly a 5 string player for
Oh, five
fires.
string. Okay.
The guys are playing 7 string guitars and drop F sharp, and some bass players will play a 4 string bass and tune up, but it's like, dude, get the fuck out of my range. Like, I want that low string where I want some notes that, they're not going to be the most accented, but you're going to feel it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I had my bass modified to accept a 195 gauge string, which just, as a point of comparison, it's probably about as thick as like a wire for headphones. It's like playing a cable. So
Like playing Romex cable, right? Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, you have to modify the nut just to accept a string that big. But
Um,
shout out to my luthier, Matt Straight. He put this together immaculately, and I love playing it.
Do you or do you not have a bass face when you play?
A bass face? I think my bass face is when my eyes are closed. So honestly, like there's certain parts
that's
where
not
I
that
may
bad.
just
Yeah, that's not that bad.
No, but you definitely have a bass face when you're playing other forms of music. Like there's been times where you're playing with like a horn section or there's like a really funky part and you have the backbeat and it's there. But I try and hide it because it's not very metal.
You keep up on your trombone chops?
No, I haven't played in decades at this point.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
actually had someone we interviewed kind of this ska band, and he was like, "Oh, I like to keep up on my trombone chops," and we're like, "We've never heard that before."
Yeah.
That's really
That's the thing,
interesting.
apparently. Yeah. So that was a really interesting interview because we learned that if you're a really good studio musician at any obscure instrument, you will find work.
Like
if
through the phone.
if you're like the guy that plays the clarinet or you're the guy that plays the euphonium or whatever, there's demand for you if you're, you know what I mean? So, and you, yeah, which I hadn't really understood that, but it's true, So
In metal, if you're a drummer, like you're probably going to get a gig if you're good.
you'll be in 12 different bands.
Yeah.
Some of these Scandinavian guys, I can't believe it. Like on Metal Archives, where it's like this paragraph this thick of all the bands they're in, crazy, Hmm.
I also really loved To You, the Author of My Fade. It kind of is, to me, a very poetic version of I Am My Own Worst Enemy, if I'm reading that right. For you personally, do you have any habits, pattern, procrastination, bad routine, and simply getting stuck in a creative rut that you would say that's me being my own worst enemy?
Oh yeah, we all have them. If I had to think, I don't do well with having nothing on my plate. Like the absence of stuff to do will just drive me nuts sometimes and will be really anxiety inducing. So sometimes it's like you're doing things just to do it and you're not really embracing the off time, right?
Right.
And in some ways, that's what music really is good for setting yourself with. Like if you're on tour, as physically demanding as it is, like it's kind of a simple routine, like drive, perform, sleep, lather, rinse, repeat. Like you have a
Right.
really simple set of goals in an increasingly complex life that we're living. So yeah, I think that's one thing I get from touring is just like, all right, sometimes it's about not overcomplicating things or just running into a whole bunch of shit to do just to do it. That doesn't get you anywhere.
I would think coming back from that would be more of the transition. Like, after you've been doing wash, rinse, repeat for like 3 weeks, to come back and try to plug back into normal. I would think that's an adjustment, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, especially going from, like when we were on tour with Dark Tranquility and Amorphous to go back to like, writing a record. We were playing theaters that were mostly sold out like towards the end of the tour and it was amazing. And then it's like, fuck man, now I'm just in my office writing bass parts. Like, it's like complete introversion compared to what we were doing a few months beforehand. So yeah, it's real.
Wow, Amorphous, they're like the Iron Maiden of Finland, basically. I mean, they are huge. I mean,
They're great guys too. So yes, to us they're huge, and it's hard not to be starstruck in a situation like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But they're all really just good people. They say don't meet your heroes, but no, like we really soaked up a lot just being on the road with them and
Yeah, I
catching
would
how they
think so.
worked, seeing what the crew was doing. Like that's an opportunity you got to make the best of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know as a fan, I go through withdrawal. If we go to like 4 days of Maryland Death Fest, it's like, it's like, get up, go see shows, go to this, go to that. But the day after when it's Memorial Day, you're like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, festivals will do that too. Yeah.
I also like the video for To You, Arthur of My Fade. Who is the bald guy in the mirror? I was trying to kind of figure out, is that kind of like your anti-self or some kind of, or is that the enemy within? It just, he seems kind of sad.
Again, I don't want to go so like I have an idea of what it means to me, but it is meant to be loosely interpreted. So I would say what you just put down on the table there, like if that's what that is to you, then we've done our job correctly. We want it to mean something, but there's meant to be a little bit of obscurity, and I don't want to cast my interpretation upon the listeners. So I'm going to plead the fifth on that.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah.
And then, where did you shoot kind of the band playing shots? And it looked like you had well, Brennan was in the woods and you guys were somewhere else.
So our friend Jason Cessna from Astralborn, another prosthetic melodic death metal band, were fucking awesome. He has a space in his house that he converted into a video shoot spot. The dude is just immensely talented with videography, and he jokes. He's like, sometimes you need better settings than my garage, but we're like, dude, no, your garage is sick. Like, you put up a bunch of black curtains, like you make the studio space, and like it's cool. We dig it.
Yeah.
It was a great.
It's always good to know a guy that's good with videos and that sort of technology. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's Jason has been an awesome just advocate of our music and just an amazing friend. We would not be making videos without him. I don't know anyone else who can put out the quality that he does, and he's just awesome to work with. He's super reasonable, super chill. Like, it's always a really fun time going up to see him and making videos.
I love the title of Radiance and Levitation. And in my review, I of course went Ghostbusters, 4 feet above our covers, but that's just me. What does that imagery actually represent? And is it kind of the lyrics that tie into the feeling of rising, escaping, transformation, or is it something else?
Yeah, again, loosely interpreted, that's along the lines of what we're trying to convey to the listener. It's a little bit more of an uplifting tune. There's a little bit more kind of hope and positivity to it. We've got the whole record to make people feel bad. We wanted to start on a high note. And yeah, I would say that your interpretation are broad feelings that we wanted to instill upon the listener.
Did you ever have a crazy working title that ended up sticking?
Your titles are very poetic, I want to say. It just seems to me like...
And maybe not directly from the lyrics,
I mean, it just seems to me like if you had a working title and it was Shazbot, that wouldn't make it to the final, like Gang of Four riff. I don't think that would make it to the final title,
Yeah, Igor will name his working titles. Like I've played in bands where it's like song 1, song 2, or just something kind of silly. But Agonal Dreaming, I think, was a working title, and I definitely texted Igor. I'm like, dude, that's the song title. Like, can we please keep that, because that's fucking awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's an example from this record that I think was a working title, and I think nobody protested
survived
going onto the record.
It's cool.
This is such an emotionally intense album. During the recording process, was there anyone in the band who felt the need to lighten the mood or have inside jokes? It seems like such a serious set of things. I'm like, but they had to be moments where they were falling over laughing.
There's got to be a release of some kind, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe once we got to the vocal sessions, but this was a hard record in a lot of ways for us. Brendan lost his cat, I think, the day that he flew down to North Carolina to do guitars.
Oh, that's terrible. Oh.
I wasn't there for that. I don't want to speak for him, but I think I'm sure there was a couple moments where he just needed to get it out, come back to it. So
yeah,
no, this was definitely a record where I think we could naturally lean into some of the tougher moments because they were there. That none of that was based upon each other or negative towards the other band. Just between loss, between a lineup change, between a record label being bought out, it was a lot at once that we had to deal with. And I do think some of the music reflects what we were going through at the time.
God, nothing is worse than losing a fur baby. And nobody gets it because it's like one thing, a relative or something, but that person isn't in your house, in your lap every day, and it's tough.
We have 5 cats. We're crazy cat people. So let me just say that.
We had 4 and we lost 1. And then somehow we ended up with 2 more. I'm like,
yeah,
I went to this feline rescue and I wanted 1. And she's like, but they're sisters. They have to come together. And I was like, okay. And they want nothing to do
They
with
can't
each other.
stand each other. So we don't get it at
I
all.
was like, why?
Like anytime they interact, they're like, I didn't know you were going to be here.
Fight for their
So I don't know where this lady totally tricked us into two for the price of one, I guess. So, yeah.
Suckers.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
She was supposed to bring them to us. She's like, if we could throw in a third, it's no extra cost.
I
I'm like,
know.
got him to agree to 2.
We're not going to 6.
I'm not asking for 3. Sorry.
People already think we're crazy. I mean, come on, So, yeah, but what I was thinking about? Prosthetic being bought like that, in working in your day job, your company being bought is incredibly scary.
Stressful.
Like acquisitions are scary as hell, because you're always thinking, well, are they going to lay people off? Is my job in jeopardy? It's not that far off for a label to do that because it could change the entire attitude. You could go from being like the top tier to who are you guys again? You hear about that stuff,
Yeah, and so for perspective, I own a financial planning business, and that is my day job. And it's amazing the interplays between music and financial planning, where it's like I feel like being a musician has helped me in that realm, and obviously vice versa. But I did acquire a practice in 2019, and as a buyer, you're taking on a large business loan to buy a business, and you have to re-sign like all the clients, and you have the seller's help, but if they say no or you lose a big part of the business, you're stuck holding the bag. So it is definitely scary doing an acquisition. The one thing with a label, and especially prosthetics model, they try and find the up and coming bands, develop them, and I would say they're kind of like a minor league baseball team, right? They're trying to find talent, they're trying to find the bands that stick, and they have a big back catalog of bands that fucking made it, right?
Yeah,
From Lamb of God to Gojira to Septic Flesh, they're going to have no trouble selling records just from their extensive back catalog. So it's a different business model because you're selling physical goods and there's different logistics involved with that. But prosthetics music is timeless. That's the sort of thing where that catalog is not going anywhere because of how many important releases they've had in the metal community.
Right. Well, okay. We play a game on the show. I think you'll like it. It's called Blaspheming Monikers. Okay. So the way this game works is I have 5 band names in front of me on this little envelope. Okay. One of them I made up. One of them's not real. Okay. So I'll read them to you and then you try to guess which one is a fake band. And we'll just keep going until either you get it right or we run out of bands.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Repulsive Vision, Kool-Aid Communion, Carnal Atrocity, Rancid Apparition, and Stillborn Slave. Which one of those sounds fake right off the bat?
Rancid Apparition.
Oh my gosh, he got it. Very good. Now, what was your basis for thinking that sounded fake?
An apparition by definition can't be rancid. It's not physical.
Well, I had ChatGPT draw the logos. There it is. So.
Oh, that's exactly what I would expect from ChatGPT.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, let me read off what the other ones were. All right. Repulsive Vision is death metal from the UK. Kool-Aid Communion is death metal from Australia. Carnal Atrocity is grind from Brazil, and Stillborn Slave is thrash from France. So,
all right, shout out to those guys. Thanks for being on the show.
That's right. This is the most publicity they'll probably ever get. So.
No, hopefully more. But it's honorable mentions.
There you go. Okay.
So you have a run of tour dates coming up. I was very excited to see that you added Baltimore on. We'll be there.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Love the Wax Atlas. So which songs from the new album are you most excited to play live, and which ones have been getting the strongest reactions from audiences so far?
The answer is one and the same. It's Agonal Dreaming. We were not planning, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but when we started playing that song live, it was like, oh, okay. This definitely needs to be one that sticks. So that is one that I think we're most excited to play. And I think that's the one where we've been getting a lot of positive feedback from audience members.
By the way, the record store that you're going to play in, Wax Atlas, right? First couple times I went there, I was a little overwhelmed because I was like, I've been here for an hour and I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface of what's here. And in this back corner here, all this shit's not even priced. Can I look at this? Like it's one of those kind of places. So I read an article about the store. That's exactly what the owner wants it to be like. Like
Nice.
he's not about like, everything indexed perfectly. He wants you to be in there finding old VHSs and stuff underneath of other stuff and stuff because it's a really cool record store. So
It looked like a really cool spot. Yeah, when we saw that from our booking
yeah,
agent, it was like, no, that this is perfect. Like, thank you
yeah, it's really
for
cool.
having this.
And it's about six
Perfect.
minutes from our house, so we couldn't improve more. It's great.
Perfect. Yeah, you can
Like
get
almost like
drunk
a
and
live
walk
show in
through
our living room. You know what I mean?
that.
Play here next. Wait a minute.
That's I
So,
mean, stop over at our place for a couple beers. Right? Exactly.
After the gig, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
so if you had a tour rider, what kind of crazy item would you put on it that you had to have either before or after the show?
You don't want to piss off venues before you get there. So we've really made it a point to just not have crazy stuff on our rider. We'll try and ask for like just nutritious food, things that are like not going to make you feel weighed down.
Right.
So we always tell venues like it's not mandatory, but like if you want to get us some snacks, here's our picks. But we never try and impose or make ridiculous demands because again, like we are not a big band. Like if you go into a venue and you're trying to call the shots and get treated like Prince, they're never going to have you back. So
Right.
we don't do that.
No sacrificing a live chicken prior to the show.
I mean, if they want to do that, that's cool, but like we're not going to demand that of them.
Somebody posted on a metal forum that I was on. They found a Motorhead rider from like 2002. It was ridiculous. It was like so many snacks and so many specific drinks, and they had certain things where they were like, "If you fuck this up, we will not play." I mean, it was just like a whole page, and it was just so specific. I it was hilarious. I mean, it's just
You hear some stuff. There's a CPA that I work with who has a client who's a drummer in a Grammy Award winning band. I'm not going to say who. And he was doing his taxes one year and he saw that there was a number of receipts from lingerie stores and that he was trying to deduct from his taxes. So he asked him, he was like, well, what's this about? He's like, well, it's women's underwear. He's like, okay, I didn't need to know that, but why are you trying to write this off? He's like, well, it helps me play. So he had to go back to the partners and like, what are we going to do about this? This is not an eligible deduction. They're like, just bury it somewhere. Like, just move on to the
yeah.
next thing. Like, he's a good client. We don't want to lose him. Just bury it.
Well, tell your friend if he hasn't seen it already, he should watch the old movie from the 80s, The Money Pit, where because Tom Hanks in that movie he does that for a living. He's like an accountant for rock bands, and like he comes to see the bands, and they like throw him up against the wall and frisk him like he's like I file their taxes. They treat him like shit everywhere he goes. Anyway,
Much like
yeah.
your restaurant servers, don't treat your accountant like shit because he can single-handedly fuck up your life.
Everywhere he goes, the bands are just like, "Who are you again?" Yeah, it's hysterical. Yeah.
Well, we can't wait to catch you out there. I've heard how fabulous this stuff is live, so
Oh,
can't
yeah.
wait to check it out. And I think this album, you guys are gonna blow up.
The sounds of decay!
Okay, Sounds of Decay 1 is the new album from Dymna Lotva, and it's called Vyraj. Now, YouTube does a series of checks on our shows when we upload them each week, and depending on the copyright situation with our music samples, occasionally we will get a notice that our show is blocked in the following countries. It's rare, but most of the time it's Belarus and Russia that get blocked, and it makes me a little sad. I care about the fans in this part of the world. Those fans deserve a good laugh as much as anyone else. Hell, I like Rocky IV. I rooted for Captain Ramius in The Hunt for Red October. Plus, I mean, there's no way Oswald acted alone or even at all, according to that Oliver Stone documentary. I mean, these people have an entire holiday week dedicated to pancakes, for crying out loud.
As if the flames of my passion for Belarus needed fanning, I was lucky enough to receive the latest promo from the Belarus-born four-piece Dymna Lotva this month, and I've been spinning it nonstop ever since. The album, Vyraj, is their fourth full-length album since forming as a two-piece back in 2015. The band eventually relocated to Poland in 2022 to avoid political persecution. I was helpless to the charms on the very first listen. Modal sounding Slavic melodies, traces of goth, bold electronic percussion, creepy Witch in the Witch vibes, and the spectacular vocal talents of Not, aka Katsarana Mankiewicz, who can melt your heart with lilting croons and nail your ass to the wall with raspy shrieks. There's an epic doomy feel to every track on the album. Most of the cuts dwelling in the 5 to 6 minute range, with a couple longer outliers. Fans of avant metal like Psy, A Forest of Stars, and especially Thai Catafalque will want to sit up and take notice of this one.
Bu Samaj is one of the shorter and more potent tracks on the album, wasting no time with a thorny doom metal riff against a blitz of tense and wordy vocals from Nokt, laying down a desperate appeal to those trapped in the Moscow gallows, eventually urging citizens to take up whatever you can, a scythe and axe, and together go fight for your human and national rights for your native land. The track is stunning musically as it is lyrically, with violin-adjacent guitar hooks, rising synths, and electronic bonks, both building tension and frosting the whole affair with the band's one-of-a-kind idiosyncrasies. The Boat of Despair finds Nokt in a stunning duet with none other than Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride. This one brings the chill bumps from the very first moment, drums pattering deftly, dirgy riffing adorned with quirky electronics, and the majestic leads from guitarist Mikita. Stainthorpe casts a glorious gothy shadow over the whole affair, which sets up the perfect atmosphere for Nokt to scream the paint off the walls, further intensifying this Nightmare River ride. Let's play a clip. This is The Boat of Despair.
Finally, there's Zori, a word that translates to stars, another track exploring aquatic themes, merging triumphant synths, vocal operatics, and storming blast beats from drummer Boshian. As the track plays out, the quirky keyboard melodies prove an unusual choice against furious blasts and witchy screams, but somehow the whole thing comes together marvelously. At any rate, this is another one of those incredible releases bound to sit alongside Urn and Chemist as end-of-the-year bests are scrawled across the interweb. So don't miss out on it. Grab one of the gorgeous gatefold jellyfish marble purple vinyl copies from the Prophecy Productions label. Is it worth the extra $7 or $8 for shipping? You bet your copy of Dr. Zhivago it is. Let's play a clip. This is Zori.
Okay, Sounds of Decay 2 is the new album from IATT, Etheric Realms of the Night. So I looked up etheric in dictionary.com, and the definition came back, a hypothetical, all-pervading medium once thought to fill space. Well, I've got one for you that's not so hypothetical, drywall dust. We had our bathroom redone a couple of years ago, and the guy gave us a pretty cheap price for it. But for a couple of months, we really came to hate drywall dust. It's an unstoppable force. Before I knew it, my guitars were coated in white powder, so was my desk, my records, my stereo. Somehow this creeping phantom made its way through the little tiny cracks in my closet. subsequently coating every clean shirt hanging in there with a nifty coat of white powder. I thought Stace and I were going to have to walk around in heavy-duty gas masks like we're living out some Mad Max fantasy or a Sodom album cover. Every once in a while, I'll open up a book to a cloud of this foul substance. Next thing I know, I'm wheezing like a hippo just because I was trying to find a casserole recipe.
Pervasive powders aside, our latest symphonic rock discovery is the uber-talented prog metal four-piece from Philadelphia, IATT. I Am the Trienemy. Etheric Realms of the Night is the fourth full-length from this ambitious band since forming in 2008, and these dudes know how to bring the metal epics. 7 songs, practically all over the 6-minute mark, and alternating odd time signatures, flutes, violins, and all manners of orchestration to accompany the fits of blast beat heavy black metal insanity. From the first track, Drift Away, it's obvious these four are writing and rehearsing their material heavily. Mellow piano, flute, and clean guitar strums kick off the track, lacing in a spoken word sample. But just when you're expecting a cameo from Ian Anderson, the heavy chugs of Joe Cantamessa and Alec Pezzano stroll into the mix. Soon the whole thing is going like a bat out of hell, and the blasting drums of Paul Cole and vocal shrieks of bassist Jay Briscoe, who also boasts the knack for super hooky, clean interludes woven into the mix with soaring synth overlays and flute lines flitting over the tempo like wayward moths. Let's play a clip. This is Drift Away.
Walk Amongst is an 8-minute stunner that moves from a wobbly test pattern hum into a scorching mid-tempo riff powered by the nimble rolls and percussive tricks of Cole. A majestic synth melody carries the air of pomp. A saxophone enters the mix to spar briefly with Briscoe's nimble bass workout. Even Bob Ezrin-style children's voices are employed in this one. Just when you think you've heard it all, the juxtaposition of saxophone and Briscoe's wicked vocal sort of straddles the line between Opeth and Paul Schaefer, which sounds odd, but works magnificently. Far out, dude.
So there you have it. Another sonically ambitious, everything but the kitchen sink progressive metal album featured right here on Snaggletooth Decay. The band is tight, the songs are memorable, and that dark album art is to die for. So head over to the official IATT website and snag a physical copy of this peerless gem. Also, the next time you're in South Jersey, be sure to check out Stratosphere Brewing in Mount Holly for a taste of the band's official Blackberry Lager. Let's hope the building's not under construction. Let's play a clip. This is Walk Amongst.
Okay, Sons of Decay 3.
This is Dreamwell with Hymns for the Denial of God. Maybe the problem isn't God. Whatever image or entity you think up that watches over us, doles out blessings and damnations, answers prayers, or sends curses, the problem is that these beings are entirely wrapped up in the fly in the ointment known as flawed humans. People take these ideas and turn them into religion. Then religion turns them into rules etched onto stone labels, accompanied by tales of fire, brimstone, and generally overly warm weather with no ice water for those who disobey. Making matters worse, those tablets are once again open to interpretation by, you guessed it, more ick people. The same flawed beings who took the original idea and built the rulebook. Those edicts can launch ships, start a crusade, or make people drink the Kool-Aid, hand over worldly goods and cash, or spank a monkey. Maybe that's the real problem. People ultimately take a good idea and try to use it as a guide for the misguided.
Rhode Island's self-proclaimed post-skramz four-piece Dreamwell gets that concept. Religion can become an inherently dangerous tool in the hands of men, much like a sword, only considerably more subtle and equipped with a little extra smoke and mirrors. On their third full-length, Hymns for the Denial of God, Dreamwell spin 10 anti-hymns, examining what happens when something intended to guide mankind becomes another weapon wielded by mankind. Musically, we're getting 10 tracks of screamo, with a sprinkle of metalcore applied liberally like hot sauce, mostly landing in that sweet 2 to 4 minute range. There's plenty of jagged riffing, tortured vocals, rhythmic violence, and twisted melodic hooks packed into these compact little emotional hand grenades. So let's open the hymn book and see what the congregation has wrought. The first track that grabbed me by the sternum and simultaneously made me wonder if Billie Eilish starring in The Bell Jar has caused a comeback surge for the works of Sylvia Plath, which just keeps resurfacing everywhere, much to this confessional poet's heart's delight. Was Plath versus Kafka versus romance? The title alone is a roadmap of intersecting routes, pain versus anxiety versus a dopamine rush, somehow melded in a mosh pit.
Musically, the track starts like a jump scare. During the verses, the drums of Anthony Montalbano are a thick kick drum slugfest with metalcore like high popping snares and cymbals exploding like someone with a lit cigarette leaning over a box of fireworks. Ryan Kudet's guitar goes off in intermittent hysterical wails, the kind of sound you get when the windshield wipers are going berserk but the windshield is bone dry. Kazaya, KZ Staska's vocals are a corrosive squawk that smarts like battery acid on a bare finger, while Justin Soar's bass stomps out notes like a pachyderm mid-tantrum. By the time we hit the chorus, Staska switches to a lighter, cleaner vocal delivery, nasal in tone with just a hint of apathy. Whenever I make my voice be heard, the flowers turn into ash. The guitars settle into slow, distorted riff cycles that somehow still feel unsettled. Montalbano unleashes the percussion driving, pushing the song along at a slightly doomier pace. Then Staska uses the final chorus repeat as a springboard straight back into the skramz, practically performing a tonsillectomy via microphone. Those guitar squalls and abrupt pauses from Coit have a definite knocked Lucius quality, adding another layer of metallic violence.
Near the end, Kuwait unleashes a little oscillating barrage of notes while the drums quiet down to little more than cymbal tingle. Soars drops slow, low-end, congealed chords underneath Staska, whose delivery remains clean but begins to howl and whine around the edges. Then everything starts rebuilding. First, Montalbano's double bass kicks, accompanied by feedback squalls, begin ramping the track back up. The bass builds from the basement and brings us back to cruising speed while Staska unloads vocally with both barrels blazing. Kuwait's guitars pick up steady, hooky cycle of rapid-fire notes, while those metallic snare raps come in like bursts from a fully automatic weapon. And then the whole thing implodes into static and guitar squeals. Let's play a clip. This is Plath versus Kafka versus romance.
Another standout track for me was Carrying Birds on the Ark. Again, what a wild combination of imagery. In the Bible, Noah's Ark represents salvation and the human race's chance at a new beginning after the flood. Carrying birds, on the other hand, have long been associated with plague, death, and looming disaster. So here we have scavengers aboard the very vessel meant to preserve life. But I guess the instructions were to get 2 of everything, right? A little yin into every yang must fall. The track starts with a bass solo from Saurus's. Everyone playing along at home knows this girl was grinning from ear to ear. Forget Frank Zappa. The bass bursts out of the gate, dark notes gaining ground like those quick little World War Z zombies. A feedback squall is the scarf drop, and the whole band hits the gas. Montalbano's drums pick up the berserk pace of the bass, pounding the kit like a school bully while offering up some hi-hat battery. Staska's caterwauls are completely rancid, with spittle flying like a gnat swarm as angular guitar riffs rage underneath. About 30 seconds in, after a pause, Kudit's guitar line becomes an organized string of notes while the rest of the band continues its rant.
Then comes a breakdown built around the slick, vile bass line and yawping guitar before the drums slam back in with the violence of a 10-car pileup. By mid-track, Staska's clean vocal delivery is offset by the chaos underneath it, creating this bizarre little island of sing-song surrounded by absolute carnage. A full stop, and Coet picks up a scratchy solo over a wash of feedback. Staska then unpacks some childhood trauma in the fit of screams as the drums revive with snare savagery, peppering into bursts of blast beats. The guitar line scrambles back together into the atonal riffing. Near the track's end, the drums begin favoring cement shoe heaviness over all-out speed as Staska screams the seasoning off your Doritos. Then suddenly, everything disappears until only the nail-on-a-chalkboard shriek of feedback remains. My favorite track is Your Ixthus decal won't get you into heaven anymore. Dreamwell isn't so subtly suggesting that wearing the symbol doesn't necessarily reflect the substance of one's character. Whether it's that fish on your bumper, a blessed t-shirt, a Get Lit menorah sweater, or even a coexist sticker, the appearance of piousness isn't going to change the fact that you were rude to your server and a crappy tipper. Just saying, as someone who once made $2.35 an hour, your extra ranch dressing is just not that important.
The track kicks the bar door open with sleazy swagger. Sora's laying down a bass line as tight as a ponytail elastic, while Kudit serves up riffs that are crunchy like potato chips on a ham sandwich. Montalbano's drums roll in like tidal waves, occasionally surging into fluttering bursts of blast beats, while Staska goes off with full-throated rage, sounding like he's bawling out some particularly belligerent Karen. Mid-track, everything suddenly collapses like one of those inflatable lawn decorations after someone unplugs the air compressor. Staska shifts into a more spoken-word delivery, but the chastising doesn't let up. Saurus's bass starts its rumbling shake-your-ass pulse while Kudit's surging guitar lines race through a series of notes, then sag back down, repeating the cycle. Montalbano keeps everything moving with metallic snare snaps and kick drums that shiver into Caesar-like fits as KZ delivers the killer line, "Why the fuck would Jesus die for you?" A flatline tone brings us out.
KZ says of the album, the prevailing narrative in heavy music is often, if you believe in God, you're stupid. This isn't our narrative. Believing in God isn't wrong. I don't think the mainstream God in the political landscape is the one we should be looking for, though. Philosophers, theologians, and writers have wrestled with the same question for centuries. When humans speak for the divine, how much of that voice is actually divine, and how much of it is simply us manipulating it to serve our own agenda?
Like I said, the problem isn't necessarily God. The problem is what people can do with God. Sacred texts become laws, symbols become weapons, and teachings meant to guide us can be twisted into justifications for exclusion, violence, or oppression. History has given us plenty of cautionary tales, from the Crusades to the more modern extremes of religious movements built around unquestionable leaders and absolute obedience. Maybe letting someone else claim they have the one true answer isn't such a great idea. And if you choose to believe, maybe take a little advice from Buddha, who is often credited with the wonderfully inconvenient idea of doubt everything and find your own light. There's something appealing about that. Question things. Think for yourself. Find your own path. You might even find your light in the mosh pit at a Dreamwell show. Maybe just don't look for it in a cult that shames you for being fat. And no, I'm not talking about Weight Watchers. Let's play a clip. This is Carrying Birds on the Ark.
Very nice. It was a good one. I actually got one or two of the Obnoxious Trivias right. I couldn't believe it.
And maybe some documentaries for later.
Yeah, definitely.
The one with that lady who escaped for all those years.
I want to hear about that crazy lady. I want to hear about that. So
The blonde tigress, they called her.
that's right. That's right. So I highly recommend this band. And I also highly recommend this bass player to be contacted if you're considering a Roth IRA. He can tell you about all the advantages.
I like a thinking man's metal band, and this is one of them.
I think he has to wear a suit and tie every day. I do.
This has been the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast. Special thanks to Craig from Fires in the Distance for appearing on the show. Snaggletooth theme by Gustav Jord of The Fleshed. Sounds of Decay theme by Steve Rathbone of Lair of the Minotaur. Sounds of Decay bands Dreamwell, IATT, and Dymna Lotva. All content 2026, the Snaggletooth Decay Extreme Music Podcast.
Your Snaggletooths are appalling.
Fuck. God damn it.
This is the Snaggletooth Extreme Metal Podcast.